So today we have Barbara, who is not only a caregiver, but is actually educated in this field and thus provides a very unique experience to the caregiving adventure. So I will hand it over to her to kind of introduce herself and just kind of discuss her caregiving experience.
My name is Barbara Miller, and I have a master's in applied gerontology. Um, I I went to school to get this master's because at the same time that my mother was experiencing life as an older adult, I was experiencing life in menopause. So we were both on this journey, adventure, and I wanted to learn more about what was happening and unfolding in our lives from a textbook aspect because it happened so quickly. We were not prepared for it on either front, my mother nor myself, that I wanted to be able to guide our future selves to have the best quality of life that we could possibly have.
Nice. So what have you, I guess, using this knowledge that you have, what do you think that you've done differently? What would you have not done if you hadn't gotten this education?
So without this education, I would not have understood the psychological toll and effect that this was taking on my mother. And without the education, I might have labeled it, well, she's just being unreasonable. My sister often tells me that had it not been for me, we would not have known what to do. She goes, and it literally took about 6 months to a year to get my sister and brother to understand the changes that mother was undergoing and what our new role in her life needed to look like. Without that background, without that education, without me going on Amazon one day and ordering the 36-hour day and sending it to my sister and said, read this book. And just to bring a level of understanding to what was happening.
That's amazing. That's amazing that you took the time and the effort to go get this degree, and just understanding how much education makes such a difference, because the caregivers that we've spoken to so far have always said that it's their first instinct is to go and do research, but it's like, are you asking the right questions? Are you looking in the right places? Where do you go? A lot of them have said that there's a lot of resources on the late stage, or a lot of accessible resources of late stage of dementia and late stage of caregiving. And there's not that much as for the early stages. So somebody actually said that it's like pregnancy, where the doctor usually gives you like the step-by-step for the entire 9 months, like what to expect when you're expecting. There is no version of that for being a caregiver. And
Right.
so how would you say that this education helped you during the early stages? And what would your advice be, whether it's resources to use or actual things to partake in?
So resources, absolutely. There are not a lot of resources out there, but I would urge people, I didn't need to go to a support group because I did have the education to support me as we were going through the early stages with mother. And I will tell you that my mom is still in the early stages. There are days that you wouldn't even know she had dementia, or people who don't know her might not be able to pick up on the fact that she has dementia. But then there are things that she says, things that she does that I know to be out of the ordinary, that aren't just normal. As we get older, we all have a tendency to forget where we laid our keys down. This is bigger than that. And my mom because she was such a strong pillar of strength, it was easy for us to it was easy for me rather to recognize the symptoms that are the things that were changing in her life. I would advise anyone to read. The 36-hour day is such a great resource. I really love that book. And I mean, like I said, I took it upon myself to order one for my sister, and it opened her eyes. And also in the early stages when we were still grappling with what was happening, there were times my sister and I would literally be texting each other at 3 o'clock in the morning. Like I would wake up, I couldn't sleep because things were so heavy on my mind, and I would be doing research on the internet. And I thought, oh, let me just send this to my sister, and she'll see it in the morning when she wakes up. And she would respond, and she would say, "You're up too," because we love our mothers so much, and we want a good quality of life for her. She had worked hard all of her life, and she had a life that had lots of disappointments, and we want her latter to be better than the former. So, we just decided that nurturing her was the best thing that we could do. And I will tell anyone, if you don't have a spiritual path, you better get one, because you're going to need it. You're going to need something bigger than yourself to support and uplift you and keep you kind of grounded, keep you from when something is said or something happens, to help you respond and not react, which is big, because when your loved one does something that is kind of, hurtful, you don't want to react to that. You want to respond to that, and you need to stop and you need to think about what you're going to say before you say it. So yes, reading, resources. You really, if you you don't have to go out and get an education, but you will need to read. You will need to do the research. You will need to read stories of other people's journeys that have already walked the path that you're about to walk. It is just so valuable in your care for your loved one.
That's so good, because I think that hopefully what we as a company are doing by giving a platform for these caregivers to tell their stories in the future will be helping other people. It could be a resource people go to. Hopefully, it could be one of the many. There are probably many other caregiver stories that are out there. People just don't know where to go.
Right.
How was your diagnosis experience? So how was that? Like, how did that come about? When did you notice? What did you notice? And were you able to go get your mother diagnosed earlier on, or was there a lot of justification?
There were justifications. The forgetfulness, not taking care of herself. My mother was always this woman who prided herself on how she looked. She's a beautiful woman. Even at 83, you wouldn't know this woman is 83 years old. But when you see little things where the depression sets in, and you get up in the morning and you don't even take your pajamas off all day, and you can see the sadness in the face, and you can feel it from her heart. I mean, you can. Another thing was the nutrition aspect of it. She wasn't eating the way and taking care of herself nutritionally. And that was probably my first biggest worry, was, is she getting the nutrition that she should be getting? Because I lived at the time before we brought my mom to live with us. I live in Georgia. My sister lives in Tennessee. So my mom is in Georgia, but she was a good 150 miles away from me. And once we were going, we would go home often, but you pick up on the little things while you were at home and you go, I think I need to come home a little more. And so it started out with me driving 150 miles one way every other weekend. And then it turned into every weekend. And even my brother and sister and people in the family were saying, why are you going that often? But by virtue of this education I was in the process of receiving, started to see the textbook aspects of her symptoms in real life, in real time. And so my mother is also a breast cancer survivor and actually did not get breast cancer until she was 80 years old. And I think that also kind of set the dementia trajectory upward, because this is a traumatic experience that she's having to deal with now. Having a mastectomy at the age of 80 and the beginning stages of dementia, and she doesn't have Alzheimer's. She does not have amyloid plaque on her brain. But of course, we know that Alzheimer's takes on many different forms of dementia. So, when she had the surgery, she came to live with me. And she had surgery in the area where I live, because this is where the better doctors are. She lived in a small rural town. And it just kind of started from there. The care just kind of, after all of the years when she was still very vibrant, after my stepfather passed, of trying to get her to move out of her hometown and move closer to us or with us. And of course, no, I'm not leaving my house. I'm not leaving my house. I'm not leaving my house. And there just came the time when, I guess 2 years ago, when she had her stroke. And the doctor said to her, you cannot live by yourself anymore. That was also, she was angry about that also, that she felt like she was fine, even though she'd had the stroke. And I'm learning so much from this journey with her, because denial is the first reaction, to any of the diagnoses that come about when it's there's this denial. And then we, went to see a neurologist, where everything was confirmed that she was in the early stages of dementia. Medications help sometimes, and some days they don't, but there is no cure. It's just meant to slow it down. I manage her care. All of her doctors, I have this little pool of doctors that are in my area that I can easily access and get her to her doctor's appointments.
Nice. So with all of this experience, I just wanted to double check, how many years has this been going on for?
2016, about 4 years.
4 years. So in your 4 years of experience, what tips and tricks would you offer to other caregivers? So from like the early stages, what do you wish you would have done had you known what was coming?
I wish I had educated myself earlier. I wish I had, we were all busy living our lives. And as I said, this happened almost overnight. It was for, for both of us. So I'm grappling with menopause over here, and mother is dealing with the trajectory of aging over here. And we're both just living our lives. And this possibility of anxiety, depression, memory loss, chronic illness just never entered into the conversation. And I think that because people are living longer, and I will tell you, I have a daughter, she is 34 years old, and I say to her, I need you to watch what's going on. I need you to really pay attention to what is happening with your grandmother and what is happening with my sister and myself as we care for her. And I need you to have your eyes open about the frustration and all of the challenges that come with caring for someone. And, you know, in the beginning, when the denial, and there are times when there is still denial on my mother's part, and you want to push back against that, but you can't. I would also tell people, everyone needs to know, if you have a family member, where the banking information is, where the insurance policies are, who the doctors are. You need to visit you need to visit the doctors. You need to know why they're taking this medication. There were medications my mother was on that were memory medications before I started to care for her. I had no idea. And she never said anything before that she was on these memory medications. So she knew a lot sooner than we did, of course, because by virtue of the fact that she was already on this medication and had been on this medication for a couple of years. So these are very tough conversations. People don't want to talk about aging. They don't want to talk about the fact that, well, because you know, as you age, eventually that's going to lead to death, right? Those are tough conversations that family members don't want to talk about. And then all of a sudden, you have this major event like a dementia diagnosis or an Alzheimer's diagnosis, and you don't know what you need to know about your loved one's life. I mean, whether it be a mother or a sister or an aunt, but you just have to have those conversations. We all need to talk about aging. It's not going away. And we don't know what our aging will look like. And my sister and I have those conversations all the time, because in caring for our mother has been such an education for us. And it's a little frightening. I hear people say all the time, everything that my mom said about my grandmother when she was caring for her are the same things that I'm dealing with my mother now. So what does that tell you? That tells you that this journey pretty much looks the same for everyone, and that you need to talk about it beforehand. You need to prepare yourself. Your loved one may or may not get dementia, and if they don't, that is absolutely beautiful. But there are still other things that you are going to have to deal with. The chronic illnesses, as I said, my mom, she got breast cancer at the age of 80, you know? So there are just, you need to prepare yourself. Would be, you know, my advice to anyone, because none of us know what our own aging process is going to look like, or what, until you're caring for someone. And I know most people have the attitude that, well, if it's not happening to me, then it's not happening. Sooner or later, it's going to happen to you, and we need to talk about it. We need to talk about nutrition and physical activity, and keeping people engaged. My mom was so physically fit. I mean, so physically fit. And now she has mobility issues. And those mobility issues came about as a result of being unmotivated to exercise anymore, to engage anymore. Engagement is so important. You have to have friends, but if you want to hide what's happening to you, what are you going to do? You're going to start to pull away from people. You're going to pull away from friends. And when you start to notice all of those things, you have to take action. You have to take action. My sister and my brother passed in June, and he always, once he understood what was going on with my mother, he said, guys, and it makes me want to cry right now. He says, no nursing home, no nursing home. We have to do this. And so my sister and I are committed to taking care of my mother, even with, and this work, I guess, I always say didn't start with me. I come from a lineage of women who took care of their mothers. My mother took care of her mother. And I know that she took care of her until my mother said to her one day, my grandmother said to her one day, Gracie, you cannot lift me anymore. You have to make a different decision. Now, my grandmother did not have dementia. She did suffer from diabetes and was in a wheelchair with one leg. My mother cared for her. She did not put my grandmother in a nursing home until a few months before she passed. And that is when it just became increasingly, because of course, sitting in a wheelchair, there's no mobility, right? So my grandmother was getting, she's gaining weight. And there just came that point where my mom could no longer navigate getting her to the bed, a bath, using the bathroom, those types of things. So I've said all that to say, prepare yourself.
That's really good. I think a lot of people, as you said, just don't want to have these conversations. It's easier to deny, to avoid, to pretend that it's not going to happen to you.
Right.
It's such a big common thing, not even just for dementia or aging, just in general. Like, you always think this is not going to happen to you. You hear it on the news and you're like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Right.
So that's definitely, people need to have a reality check, and it's obviously easier said than done.
Right.
So yeah, that's very, very, very good advice. And we really appreciate you imparting your wisdom for everyone else who is watching.
Well,
I think
you.
The last question would be in terms of tools and resources. So for example, what do you use to keep track of the caregiving process, the documents, the appointments, as well as what tools do you use to kind of make things easier around the house, maybe, as well as anything that you advise for self-care, just for yourself as a caregiver? What would you say to that?
So the first thing I will say is, it's not a cliche, it is a quote, that if you do not take care of yourself first, you will not be any good to the person that you are caring for. My sister and I learned that the hard way. because we were so vested in taking care of my mother that we would fail to take care of ourselves. And so now my sister and I remind each other to self-care. Because if not, you will hit a wall. And once you hit that wall, you're going to be cranky. And if you're cranky, the person you're caring for, they're going to feel that and they're going to take it personally. So the very first thing is, yes, definitely take care of yourself. The way I do it, I rise early in the morning when my mom is with me, and I sit side by side with God, and I read my spiritual devotions, and I pray, and the window is, I have my journaling desk in front of the window so that I can lift the window and watch the sunrise and listen to the birds and kind of calm myself and set the tone for the day. And it works, because there are times when if I am really tired and I don't get up and do that, the day does not go as well for me, because I've started the day out now not getting myself ready, prepared for the day. So that is how I prepare for the day. You know, in this age of coronavirus, I've not been able to do any spa visits. I am hoping that that is something that I can do again really, really soon. But I will tell you that as soon as we opened back up, I put on 2 masks and I went to get my hair done at a salon, and I got my feet done because I needed someone else to massage my scalp other than myself, and I needed someone else to massage my toes, you know. So self-care is so very important. And eating right. My sister and I, in the beginning, we would make sure that my mom had a healthy meal. But after working all day and dealing with all of the stresses of life, we would put her plate on the table and we would barely eat. So then now I'm anemic, you know. So now I drink a green juice in addition to trying on those days when I don't eat the proper amount of fruit and vegetables in one day. I am an Excel guru. So I keep up with everything on Excel. It's actually a skill I learned 4 years ago, which is really pretty cool, because up until that time, I would just tell someone, I need this, and someone would create it for me. And then I changed jobs, went to work for a nonprofit, and found myself in a position where create this. And I'm like, uh-oh. So, you know, people in the organization that I worked for helped me to learn Excel. And then just by going on Google and going, hey, Google, how do I do this in Excel? So that is how I keep up with her finances and my finances, because that in itself, taking on the role of handling the finances is a huge responsibility. Before I started setting up an Excel sheet to prompt me and input everything, there were times when I made sure her bills were paid, and then I would get this notice because I didn't pay one of my bills, right? So you have to be organized in that aspect. And then my iPhone is an extension of my brain. When I am at the doctor's office with her and we get the next appointment, I pull up my calendar because it has, you know, not only my work calendar, but, you know, it's broken up so that I know by color code what's personal for me and what green is my work activities and tasks. So I put it in the iPhone while I am standing at the desk. I don't move until I have it in my iPhone. Because if I write it on a piece of paper, that piece of paper is not going to survive the day. Yes. So, apps are truly a gift to input that data that you need in order to keep up with your life. I downsized my life. I am working on more minimalism type, more minimal type life, because it just helped me to calm the noise and the chaos when I am caring for my mother. I think a minimalist lifestyle is just the best, just really, really help to help me stay organized. But that's it. And I do something every day to keep my organization system updated. I don't, you can't just do it and just walk away from it. It has to be managed.
All right, this was amazing. You provided so many tips and tricks and just lessons that I believe that just aren't necessarily accessible unless you ask the right questions on Google. And so hopefully, well, I know for sure that your wisdom will definitely help so many other caregivers, especially the newer ones who are just so lost. And so I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about your caregiving experience as well as your education and that unique perspective that you do offer. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you this morning. When you reached out to me, sometimes I'm very leery about answering DMs on Instagram, but this somehow felt right. I always tell people that I have a discerning spirit. That's my superpower, and this felt right.
All right, thank you.